まともに差し込まない君はまるで日陰に咲いた花のよう望んだはずじゃなかった場所に手を離されて動けずにいるんだね
Welcome back to another episode of GAMER-0, where we spread that gaming truth like a virus. I'm your host, T-Hill. So, I know I've been gone for a quick minute. I do apologize. Been wicked busy with Gamers 411, PAX East, just tons of stuff in general. I'll get into that all at a later date, but what I would like to talk about is Dead Space 2, and this is my review. So, I will try to not take up too much of your time. Dead Space 2 is a continuation of the Dead Space series. So, pretty much the way it breaks down is you are Isaac Clarke. It is several years from the incidents that happened on the Ishimura from Part 1. I won't go into detail for what happened in Part 1 because there's too many spoiler alerts, and I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't played Part 1. But it takes place several years later. The necromorphs are back. Your job is to figure out why, considering you thought you destroyed them. It's a great story. The characters, there's a lot of them. A lot of plot development, a lot of personal interaction, which you didn't really get to see in Part 1 so much. You know, you get to see a different side of Isaac, aka his face, which is nice because you didn't get to really see it in Part 1. It was always hidden behind the engineering mask. In Part 2, you get to see it, which is cool. You also get to see a lot of his interaction with other people. The roster of characters has what seems like almost doubled, which is good because it can be good. And in the way it was done in Part 2, it really does complement it. It allows for plot twists, for personal growth of Isaac and his supporting cast. So it's really good. The story is really deep, rich. It's not like, I mean, it is what it is. It's deep for the type of game that we're talking about here. You don't expect like a Final Fantasy game because then you'd be deluding yourself. It is a good game overall from the story development. Keeps you on edge. The plot will throw you for a loop at the end. I really enjoyed it. Overall, the story is great. Going on to graphics, the graphics are gorgeous. Butter smooth, lighting and textures are just phenomenal. The dark, gritty nature of the sprawl is very well represented and is conveyed properly on the armor, the weapons. They're just very bulky and mechanical, just nature, which is indicative of the series. The folks over at Visceral did a phenomenal job at crafting this universe and making it so believable. There's no, from what I noticed in my playthrough, no graphical hiccups, no screen tearing, no frame rate drops, no jaggies. The game played out on my TV at 1080, so that was amazing. Just stunning beyond belief. Deep colors, the shadows were really, really thick. The light was really bright and intense when it needed to be. The effects of the particles, the way the light from Isaac's mask is even conveyed is just really dramatic. The way the character models seem so smooth and so butter, like just, I want to say, very well shaded and textured, that it comes off as very believable. You know, the experience of gravity and the lack of gravity in some of the areas is really well done, and makes you feel like you're actually in space. Some of the scenes when you're fighting the necromorphs and you smash their head or whatever and blood splatters on the wall is really cool as well. Stomping on the feet is a nice, stomping on them is a nice added effect because the blood splatters out and the bodies break apart. It's really nice. The ragdoll physics when you shoot somebody with certain weapons and they get pinned on a wall, they go flying, that's really cool. So all in all, the graphics are just really top notch. The art direction makes the world so believable, and it's just a sight to behold. It's a gorgeous game. So moving on to controls. Well, it's a sequel. The HUDs are all displayed the same way. Your life is on your back, which is clearly visible. It's nice and bright. The energy from your kinetic energy, where you can shoot out waves of this kind of plasmatic energy that slows people down, and you can use it to pull stuff towards you or push it away, is really nice. And you know, being able to swing your pistol, stomp if the enemy's on the ground, it's all fine. Shooting is nice and smooth. You know, there's just so much to the graphical fidelity that it's a really good experience. You know, I enjoyed the controls. I never had any problems playing with it. Like, oh my god, this is like playing finger twister with my controller. I never had that problem. The only problems I did in the controls aspect is sometimes turning around to retreat was a problem. Mainly not so much from the character, but from the layout of the levels. So the level design could be problematic in certain areas. That's just my experience. It wasn't so much of a deal breaker by any means. Continuing on with the gameplay, the parts of the game that were really fun were like the space exploration, the shooting, certain things. The puzzling was kind of cool. There were some unfun parts, really unfun, towards later ends of the game, where the safe spots were split up too far apart. You just didn't get enough chance to get ammo, to heal up, to save, and that became a problem because later on you do a lot more running for your life than actually fighting stuff. And they would throw waves and waves of the necromorphs at you, and you would die repeatedly till you edged your way through or got lucky. And that wasn't enjoyable for me. I didn't care for that at all. Felt more like a chore towards the end than anything else. And it did use the same kind of formula over and over. Shoot, 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 till everything's dead, and then rinse and repeat. It just felt like some of the chapters weren't needed. There wasn't enough story development in certain chapters to warrant them. Some were stretched out too long. Others were over before you even knew it. But there were some high points in the gameplay's like control, and the gameplay itself, where you're like, there's a scene where you're on this kind of like grinding machine, and you're going through a tunnel, and that's really cool because you're on it and the necromorphs are trying to get to you. That's a cool part. The space walk parts, the halo jump is really cool. You know, there's a lot of good parts. The dismemberment's always fun. There's tons of weapons that you can have access to, which is nice, which, you know, leads into the replayability, which there's tons. You will not get every weapon and upgrade them fully, upgrade your rig fully, upgrade all these different things by the end of the first playthrough. I'm sure you could probably play through it several times before you upgrade everything, which is cool. It adds a lot to it, and that coupled with the fact that the New Game Plus means that you can play through the game with all your save stuff and get more out of your experience, which makes it so that way you don't get frustrated. The first time was really frustrating for me, the first playthrough. The second time through with all my armors really made it more enjoyable with the upgraded weapons. I was able to take a lot more of the challenges and enjoy them and be a lot more precise and methodical with the way I approached certain situations my second time around. Yeah, so the replay is full of content for you to enjoy. There is great sound design, which really, really makes the atmosphere so much better. It's so moody, so captivating, really draws you into the world by simple sound design. Hearing your shells hit the ground, the way they throw you off of certain chords and instrumentals to pull you in and then make you think something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, and then you're like, well, what the hell's going to happen? And you get a nice lull from the sound, and then something happens. It's just simple mechanics like that that really pull you in and really make it a very intense and polarizing game. I thoroughly enjoyed the music. I thoroughly enjoyed the sound design. If I had to rate this game, I'd have to give it, unfortunately, a 3 out of 5. The game is not broken. It's not phenomenal. It falls somewhere in between because you really do have to play through the game a second time to get the most out of it. Because the first time through is more of a chore, of an exercise in patience, because you are dying so often. And that could just be indicative of the way I play. Maybe others didn't experience that on their first playthrough. I played through it on normal, and that was a lot of what I went through, and it really took me back. If that is the way the game is for everybody, or a good majority of it, I didn't enjoy it. I felt that some of the levels didn't need to be there. It could have been a little bit more condensed. It didn't really need to be 15 chapters. It could have been 10, and really been more meatier chapters that made more of a consistent pacing in the game. On top of that, part of it was stretched out so much that they should have had more save spots towards the end, a little bit more ammo, so that way it didn't feel like just running for your life, especially with some of the enemies at the end, which, I mean, there's a good variety of enemies, but one in particular doesn't die. It just keeps coming back, and that's bad enough, but it makes it worse when you throw that guy in with other necromorphs and no other ammo unless you kill something and pick it up, and no save points, and you end up just getting into the habit of running for your life down the corridors just to make it. And I didn't care for that in particular. It just really it pulled me out of the immersiveness of the game. Like, the mechanics that you've grown so used to get pretty much thrown away just for survival tactics, and I didn't enjoy that. I know it's an opinion, but I'm sure a lot of other people felt the same way. So that would be one of the main reasons why I give this a 3 out of 5. It has the redeeming qualities of having tons of playthrough content. There is a multiplayer portion, which I won't go into on this review, because I normally don't review the multiplayer portions, because those are so subjective on different aspects of it, because rating against other games, yes, it could have certain features that another game has, but the implementation is always up for interpretation, because the core are going to take it for what it is, and the casual people who don't really enjoy multiplayer are just going to throw it away. So I'll leave that alone, but the core game is a good solid 3 out of 5. Not a bad game by any means, not a great game by any means, just a good game. I would recommend it if you like these type of games. It has thrills, it has a good story plot, there is a lot of additional content, but it does have some parts, and be prepared to potentially have a slugfest through the first round. Second playthrough, you'll enjoy it way more. So that's what I have for this episode of GAMER-0. You know, you can always follow me on hiphopgamershow.com. On Twitter, it's T_Hill0, or you can play with me on PSN, it's T-Hill. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm your host, T Hill. I'm out. Peace.